Okay, the first thing we want to show today is how to set up our machine here and how to go about approaching the stump here that we're going to try and demo for you here today. First thing I want to do is, I don't have any cutters on our machine here at the moment, so what I'm going to do is, you've seen that I packed this machine up a steep embankment to get over here to where this stump's at. And what I'm going to do now is assemble the leg on here, because it was a lot easier to pack it up the hill without the leg on there. And so I'm going to put the leg on and the transport wheels so that it makes it really nice to be able to change the teeth. So I'll show you how quick this is to do this. All we have to do is remove one nut and a washer over here on what we call the pivot shaft. I'm going to take that off. One person can do this pretty easy. Just slide it on. Put the nut and washer on. Make sure you tighten it up. I happen to have a 3/8 ratchet with a 3/4 socket on here, and you can see how easy this is. And then, what really helps when we go to put the teeth on here is to put this transport wheel set on. It isn't mandatory, but it just makes it really nice. If you slide this wheel set on and then pull the leg back towards the handle of the motor, and look at how, when we set the motor on the ground, lifts the wheel up off the ground, so it makes it really nice to be able to put the teeth in there. Now, as we start to put the teeth on the machine, I always want you to use anti-seize on the teeth bolts, because what that does, there's a lot of water or pitch or sap that will come out of the stump, and they'll try to get in where the threads of the bolts are. Well, this anti-seize helps to keep the bolts from rusting in place. So we'll install that, and I'll also show you how to install the teeth. A very good way of doing this, so that you can make sure that you have the right amount of tension on your teeth bolts here as we get going. What I want you to do is, at the top of this tube is, you can just puncture it so that you can get the anti-seize out of there. Put a little bit on the bolts here. And then we have 3 rights and 3 lefts on this wheel. And on this side here, this side of the wheel is considered lefts. And so what you're going to do is, you're going to slide these teeth into a pocket and then screw your bolts in there. There's no gauge depth to go to like most stump grinders. All you're going to do is put it in the pocket, bolt it in, and you're done. Very simple. You've got 2 bolts per tooth. And there's 6 teeth on a wheel, so you got 3 rights and 3 lefts. As you can see, this is a pretty fast process here. All the wrenches are supplied with the machine that you'll need. The teeth are staggered across the wheel. Cuts about 1 3/4 inch wide cut, which is really nice for tracing out roots. You want to make sure anytime you put teeth in the wheel that there's no dirt between the tooth and the wheel, because then that way your bolts will come loose prematurely. This wheel set really makes it nice to change the teeth out. It gets the cutter wheel up off the ground. Unlike if you didn't have that wheel set, then you're down in the dirt here trying to bend over and kneel above it. So it really makes it handy position to change the teeth. And what we're doing here right now is, we're putting on an older set of teeth that has been damaged a little bit more than what I would like to cut stumps with. So what we're doing is we're going to be digging a trench around the outside of this stump, so that we're not going to damage our brand new set of teeth that we got. The regular teeth, they cut the wood, like hardwoods and tough. This is a tough wood here on a Douglas fir, and the regular teeth cut the fastest in that kind of wood. Then we have another style called rock teeth, and they're more durable in rocky ground, but they cut about 20% slower. So you definitely want to be able to, as you get experience, you're going to find out which ones you like the best. But I always carry both kinds, because there's sometimes, like if I'm cutting a cottonwood, I'll actually put the rock style teeth on first, and because it really works well in that kind of wood. But if I'm in a hardwood like a oak or a eucalyptus, any kind of pin oaks, stuff like that, then the regular teeth cut better. Now, here's the thing is, most people can't get enough torque on the bolts just with the wrench. So how we're going to do this is we're going to turn the wrench so that it's 90 degrees from the center of the wheel, and then that way we can take a 40-ounce soft hammer. It's got sand in the middle of this, and we can pound on this a few times like that. You don't have to really hammer on it hard, but you got to do it a little bit more than what you can as far as pressure with your hand, and that's about all it needs. If you do this, you'll never break a bolt, providing you keep your bolts. That you don't want to use one set of bolts all year long. You want to be able to use them for 2 weeks to a month, and then interchange them out with a new set, because they will fatigue. And so you do have to change them out once in a while. But you can see I'm not really hammering on this all that hard. It's just setting them so that it's a little bit more than what you can do with hand pressure. Now you'll notice if you get the wrench so it's pretty much going straight out from center line, it actually rotates the wheel. So that's why you want to turn this wrench approximately 90 degrees from the center of the rotation, so that it doesn't want to spin. And the same thing when you go to loosen up the teeth. You always want to have it about 90 degrees from center of the wheel. So there it is. That's all it takes to change out a set of teeth. Now, in the case of, like I said, what we're going to do now is this particular stump is one that if we're going to cut this below ground level, we're going to want to get rid of any dirt and rocks that are there, because obviously rocks damage teeth. Dirt doesn't bother it, but rocks do. So this machine is very easy to use as a rototiller to dig around this stump. So you'll see, as we pan around with the camera, you can see the vegetation and how the dirt is sloping up on the stump. And you're going to watch me use this machine in a way that's going to dig a trench around here, so that then all I have is clean wood to cut, and I won't even dull my teeth whatsoever. But I have dedicated a set of old teeth on this wheel to do just that, is to be able to trench around this, not worry about this set of teeth, but I'm keeping my fresh set of teeth, the ones that's sharp. I want them staying as sharp as possible, because that's how you get the wood done the fastest. There's always a sweet spot on every single stump you go to. So I'm going to show you the difference between a sweet spot and one that if you start cross grain cutting, you're going to go about 30% to 50% slower. So it's really important to be able to cut and find this sweet spot to start with. And I'll show you some examples of another stump right up here behind us that has a great proof of how important it is to find that sweet spot. And the neat thing about this machine is you have the ability to move it around wherever you want to, because how portable it is. So as I started to say a little bit earlier, we're going to trench around this stump. There's a couple things I would make sure of, is like if there's a great big rock here, obviously the machine's not capable of taking out a great big rock, so you have to get a shovel or a pry bar to take it out. All there is pretty much smaller rocks, so this machine's going to take them out pretty good. And then what I'm going to do, just for the safety, there's a lot of root systems here that I don't want getting my feet tangled up, so I'm going to get rid of these that's in the way. And then if there's anything loose like that, now there's some of this root system that's a little bit not severed off yet, and we'll take care of that with a stump grinder. But I've gotten rid of most of the loose stuff because I just don't want a big chunk of wood coming back and hit me. The flaps are really good about that, but just take a little bit of precaution to get rid of that if that's in your way. Now what I'm going to do is, we don't operate the machine with the wheel set on like 99% of the time. So in this case, I'm going to take them off, and then I'll start cutting a trench around this stump and debarking the outside of the stump and making it, like I said, we're trying to get that stump so it's a clean piece of wood so that we don't even dull our teeth. Okay, what you can see is in just a few minutes I've been able to dig a trench around this stump and remove a lot of the debris. As you can hear on the video, there's a lot of big rocks in here that was unexpected. And what happens with the smaller rocks, the machine's going to kick them out, but I'm going to show you a few sizes that the machine didn't want to take out, but I exposed them so that makes it easy to either take a pry bar or a shovel if you have one. And you can see the size of the rocks that I'm talking about. The machine's not capable of getting them out, but at least you're going to expose them so you can get rid of them and get them out of the way. Okay, we just got done trenching around this stump as far as we're going to take it. And what I'm going to do now is switch back over to a sharp set of teeth, and again using the transport wheels to make it really easy to change the teeth. We'll just slide it on there, rock it back on the wheels, and now we got the cutter head up off the ground, making it really easy access. What we're going to do is take a screwdriver on the inside of these screws. They're socket head cap screws, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a screwdriver and dig the dirt out of it so we can get our wrench in there. You don't need an air compressor, but as you can see, I'm using my breath to blow out the dirt out of the pockets. And I'll take the hammer and I'll tap the wrench into the socket so that there's no dirt keeping it from engaging all the way into the bolt. Normally you don't go to this much trouble. If the stump was a lot smaller, you just take out a shovel and dig around it. But I could tell that there was so much rocks and so much volume of dirt that I didn't want to be digging it out. You can see how fast it is to change these teeth out. And I'd rather use the machine to get the dirt away from the stump than I would to use a shovel when it's this big. But if it's smaller, it's faster with the shovel. And right now I'm making sure with my screwdriver I'm cleaning all the dirt off around the pocket there so that when I put the new tooth in, there's not going to be any dirt between it and the cutter head, so that the two faces of the metal bolts up really nice and snug. Then in this case I'm going to use a set of regular teeth to put on here because the regulars cut very fast in this kind of wood. You don't have to put anti-seize on every time you go to put, like you change out a set of teeth like we just did. There's plenty of anti-seize on from the first time we coated the bolts. So I may put anti-seize on about anywhere from 5th to 10th time I change out the teeth. Now I'll talk about the motors on this machine. We offer 3 different ones currently. One is with this steel power head. It's the slowest of the 3 motors when it comes to grinding stumps, but it works the best if you're going to do trenching. And it has a lot more torque at a low RPM, so that's why I like it a lot better for that kind of application. Now, then if you want something that cuts stumps faster by about 10%, you can get the one with the solo motor, and that is a German-made chainsaw motor, and it cuts about 10% faster than this one here. Now, it's considerably cheaper because we get OEM pricing from Solo. And so we offer that same discount to our customers, and it's proven to be a very good motor. We've had it on here 6 years as of current date, this is year 2009, and it's turned out to be a really good motor. The same with the steel. I mean, we've had this motor on our machine ever since day one. And we also have the Husqvarna 3120 on our machine, which is the most powerful of the 3 motors. It's really fast at grinding stumps. It's about 30% faster than the steel, and it's about 20% faster than the Solo. And it probably does trenches better than the Solo. The Solo is probably the worst of the 3 motors when it comes to doing trenches, but it can be done. It's just that you have to be a very skilled operator to use it. The steel is very forgiving in doing trenches because of how much control you got at a low RPM with all that torque that this motor puts out. The Husky, on the other hand, is a very high revving motor like the Solo, and even though it's capable of doing trenches, it's better for doing stumps and shallow trenches like 12 inches or less. The Husky's really good at. So, and both the Steel and the Husky right now are the same price. So it is a matter of application that you're using it for. Some people use a cheater pipe, like an extension to this wrench, and that's fine. I personally like this hammer a lot better. It's a very easy to use. There's very little risk at busting your knuckles. And it gets the bolts plenty tight so that you can see all the rocks we hit. You could hear them in the video. We're just hammering on rocks. We didn't break a bolt, no teeth come loose, and it's all because of this right here, setting the right amount of pressure on those bolts so that they don't come loose on you. Okay, we're all set for the grinding some stump. Now, what I'm going to try to show you here is the fact that every stump has a sweet spot. And what I mean by a sweet spot is, depending on your attack angle, you can either cut fast or slow, and the sweet spot is the one where you can cut the stump the fastest. And so what I'm going to do here is first show you the action in which we're going to cut, and that action is we're going to be trying to cut a diagonal line down on this stump because it's the smoothest cutting. Like if you was to cut the stump and just let the cutter head go straight down into the ground, like, you know, if you're going straight down, then what happens is, as soon as you make a 90-degree contact of the wheel, this thing will want to jump up on you. And I'm going to purposely show you what happens when that does that. It's not violent, but it's going to let you know it doesn't like it. So what we try to do is cut a 60-degree arc, something about from here to here, and try to cut between that area right there, because that will cut very smooth. Now, of course, when you get the stump down to ground level, you're going to be cutting on the bottom of the wheel, which is fine, because then you may only have 60 degrees of from here to here, and it's not making more than a 90-degree contact of the wheel. So it's going to act very mild doing that. So, like I say, we're going to go and show you, we're going to start on this stump. I have no idea where the sweet spot is on this stump, but I'm going to show you on another stump what the difference is when you can find that sweet spot. Okay, as I said earlier, we're trying to show everybody how to get on the sweet spot of the stump. Now, you'll see from some earlier demonstrations we've done with some local companies, we went and started on this one side of the stump. Now, it happens to be the south side of the stump, but it doesn't matter. This is where we first started cutting. Now, as we started cutting, we started getting these really small chips. And these chips represent slowness in how the machine's cutting. So, obviously, we don't want this really fine, powdery chips. There'd be a few occasional bigger chips in here, but the majority of it is very fine. Now, like as I proved to this customer we was doing a demo for, we're going to go over here to the opposite side of the stump. It's 180 degrees away. Now we're going to pan over here and we're going to show you how much bigger the chips is coming from the same stump. Now you can see how much bigger these chips are coming off of that stump. Exact same stump, just a different side of the stump, and because we have the portability with the machine to move it around any side we want to, here we are getting these great big slivers out of here, and what that means is we're cutting at least 50% faster by finding that sweet spot. And it's very evident from that side of the stump to this side of the stump how much difference that was just finding the sweet spot. And as it turned out, this particular stump happened to have the sweet spot on the north side, so we could have ate through this whole stump by now in what, if we would have approached it from this side of the stump, it would have been gone in the same time that we only cut half the stump from the south side, making those little chips. now we're going to come over to this stump that we trenched around, and what we're going to try and show you is, first of all, the proper cutting action. And again, I don't know where the sweet spot is on this stump, but I want to show you the proper cutting action. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to position this machine to the point where when I make a cut, I'm going to get it close enough that I'm going to have the legs standing in almost a vertical position. And when I go to grind on the stump, I'm going to have an action that's going to start at the top and come down towards the root system. And when that happens, you get this nice angled cut on the stump, and there absolutely is just phenomenal control by doing it that way. Some people make the mistake of starting at the bottom and letting it climb up the stump because it's very easy to do that. The problem is you're entering the outside of the wood where there's still some sand and little rocks possibly, and your teeth are going to dull faster than if you start at the top of the stump and you cut at an angle, because then the tooth enters fresh wood and pulls the bark and dirt and rocks away from the stump, so it puts a barrier between the carbide and the rocks and debris that's on the outside. So your teeth will last 3 to 4 times longer if you just start at the top of the stump and come down towards the root system, and do it in an angled cut. Now, I'm going to position this, and I'm only going to take a little bit of cutting here to see. I'm going to test this stump to see what's happening as far as my chip production, and I'm going to try to show you here, you know, that I can operate this machine with just my fingers on this, moving it back and forth. It has that much control. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. You only need about 10 pounds of energy to move it back and forth. And I will put my hand on here as a safety valve, but at one point I'm going to show you just how easy this thing is to operate with fingers, just to show you that it can be done. Now I've started on this one part of the stump, and I know that I'm not cutting with the grain. As you can see, the chips are short. They're better than on the other stump that had really fine sawdust. I am getting some production out of this, but it's not as good as I'd like. So I'm going to change the position in which I'm going to shoot here. And then as we grind on this, you're going to see a difference in the chip just because of the spot that I'm on. Got to a spot where it's a little bit, I'm getting out of position to operate in, so I'm going to move the machine ahead a few inches just to make it more comfortable for the operator. But you can see the size of the chips is a lot better. Okay, as you can see, the chips from this angle is really peeling out a lot of large chips. Look at how long and sliver these are. This is what should happen on a Douglas fir. And so obviously my production is way better than over on that side. Now, I also forgot to mention that if I was out there grinding stumps for a living here, what I would have done, because I cleared a trench around this stump, you can see how much tall this stump is. Well, if I was going to do this and wanted to really speed up my time in getting the job done, I'm going to take a saw and I'm going to saw off the majority of that stump so that all I have is pretty much a lot of just a little bit of the base system and then some feeder roots, and it really cuts down the speed or the time that it takes to grind a stump. So I'm only doing this so that you can see the visual difference between cutting over here on this one side where the sweet spot wasn't, and now we found the sweet spot from this side of the stump. And it happens on just about every stump out there. And what you're looking for is, on some oak trees, you may not get the big long slivers, but as long as you're getting good production, stay with it from that direction. If you're not getting good production like over here, then you need to change your position, and it's easy to do. And now what I'm going to do is, a lot of people wonder, how dangerous is this machine? Like, does it kick back? Well, it doesn't kick back. What happens is, if you make more contact than a 90-degree arc of the wheel, it will jump up. Now I'm going to purposely get this thing to act up, but I'm going to show you what it does when you make too much contact with the wheel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut kind of a belly in the bottom of this cut. Instead of making a nice smooth arcing, a diagonal cut on the stump, I'm going to make it try to go straight down so it makes a dish cut. And so when it gets down to that bottom, you're going to see it want to jump up because it's got too much contact. So what you have to do is you have to cut out, when you're cutting the stump, cut that little piece off back here that creates too much contact to the wheel. So watch this. I'm going to show you exactly what happened. And this thing is not dangerous, but it will let you know when you're making too much contact with the wheel. Now see how long it didn't take me to do that? As soon as I started cutting, I was actually cutting at about 7 o'clock on the wheel up to about 3 o'clock. And so because I'm making that much contact, it wants to jump up. Now you can see I didn't lose control of that machine, and you can get your finger off the throttle at any time. So if it starts doing that, you just know that you've got too much wood right down here that you need to clear out so that you can make your straight cuts down there at a diagonal cut so that it doesn't want to act up like that. So that's the worst case scenario that you're going to have. But be aware when it starts doing that, that's what you need, is you need to get rid of this wood that's right down in there and make a diagonal line cut down this stump, and you see how smooth it cuts when you do that. And I'll continue on here a little bit just to prove my point some more. That's pretty much all you have to do. Like I said, is just keep cutting a diagonal cut. Not going to have any problems whatsoever, and if it does start to want to hop on you, just means you're making too much contact with the wheel. This particular stump is 24 inches in one direction and 17 in the other at the top, and of course when it gets down further it's a lot bigger than that. So you can see how fast this little machine can take this out, and you can imagine with this motor here being the Steel TS760, if we can cut this stump in that fast a speed, can you imagine having the Husqvarna on here going 30% faster as a bare minimum? I've had guys do 7-foot diameter red oaks in an hour and a half, and that's cutting 6 inches below grade. So that's an awful lot of wood to be producing with a small stump grinder.